Hello, everyone. This is the ambassador coming to you again, and we have a very interesting subject. So-called African Americans are the true Jews, and here's why. There seems to be some discrepancy concerning whether the so-called African Americans or the blacks are truly descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. In order for one to be from the bloodline of Jacob or Israel, whom God changed Jacob's name to Israel, is really quite simple. The true descendants of Jacob's 12 sons are right there in the book of Deuteronomy. If you do not fit the description or the plagues that came upon them for disobedience, then you cannot be a true Israelite. God's chosen people, then you must likely are not an Israelite if you don't fit the curses. Coming from that part of the world, one would most likely have skin of color. It has been said that the Israelites who came out of Egypt with Moses ranged in color from high yellow to a very dark or black skin. The reason the tribes were in Africa was because of the Roman persecution, and they fled into Africa. They left the land that God had given them. They had to run into different parts of Africa, mainly on the middle and west coast of Africa is where they settled, in and around Africa. When Jesus was born, King Herod wanted to kill all babies from 2 years old and younger, trying to kill the Christ. When God gave the land that is now called Israel, at that time the land was called Canaan, and Joshua, it was named Israel in 1948. The so-called Jewish people named that land Israel. God told Joshua to go and take Canaan land. This was the land that God gave to the freed slaves that came out of Egypt with Moses. Plagues came so strongly on the Egyptians and Pharaoh because they would not let God's people go, but kept them down in harsh slavery, which some say 400 years. But that 400 years does not belong during that first slavery in Egypt, but were only enslaved in Egypt about 215 years, according to the biblical scholars. Now, getting to the slave trade, that happened around 1619, when the so-called African American was kidnapped and taken by force from Middle Africa and the west coast of Africa. And that is all written in the book of Deuteronomy. And it behooves me how nobody understands or talks about this particular part of Deuteronomy. So, yes, this was the book where all the curses were put upon the people. So, yes, we're going to deal with the book of Deuteronomy. When the Bible speaks of Israel, God is referring to his people Israel, who were the descendants of Jacob's 12 sons, and not referring to a land called Israel. In the chapter 28 of the book of Deuteronomy are the curses Moses prophesied would come upon the children of Israel if they did not hearken to the commandments that God gave them, that all the curses in Deuteronomy 28 would come upon the children of Israel. Now, if these curses do not apply to your group of people, then you are not an Israelite. God promised that if they obeyed him, that the Lord God would set them on high above all lands and nations. God promised to bless the Israelites in every way if they obeyed him after he brought them out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Well, the children of Israel did not obey God and went back to their old ways of every kind of sin before God. So God said these curses will come on you if you do not keep God's commandments. So the curses began. God said if they kept his statutes, that they would be the head and not the tail. And who is the head? And who has always remained the tail? God said he would smite them with oppression and being spoiled evermore, and no man shall save them. Thou shalt take a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Okay? Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. This is the curses God is putting on the children of Israel. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thin ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none of to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto other people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. Okay, have your children been given away and you long for them? And there shall be no might in thy hand, meaning no strength or power to do anything about it. The fruit of the land and all the labors shall a nation which thou knowest not will eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. What group of people do you know who have been oppressed and crushed always? The Lord shall bring thee and thy king into a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And thou shalt serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all the nations. What groups of people are a byword today? Whither the land shall lead thee. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. If your sons and daughters have not gone into captivity, then you cannot be an Israelite. The stranger that is within you or within your area shall get up above you. So everyone that's coming in your area will be above you, very high. Thou shalt come down very low. These curses shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because those that serve not the Lord thy God with joy and gladness of heart will have these curses. Thou shalt serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So who do you know that has had a yoke of iron upon their neck? The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as an eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. Family will be set against each other. He, God, will bring plagues and sickness upon thee, and thou shalt be plucked from the land. Thou go to possess it, and the Lord shall scatter you among all the people. He said the Lord shall scatter you, not that you would leave a place and go to another place. Said the Lord would scatter you among all nations. Thou shalt find no ease. Ooh, there is something there. No ease shall these people find. You shall have a trembling heart, failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt, and thou shalt fear day and night, and no assurance of thy life. Oh yes, no assurance of our lives. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again, meaning bondage, with ships. By the way thereof I spake unto you. Who has gone into bondage with ships, packed in the bottom of slave ships like sardines? Thou shalt see it no more, your land. There ye shall be sold as bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. If you have not been sold as bondmen and bondwomen, You cannot be an Israelite. These are the curses which God said would come upon the children of Israel. Yes, which did happen to the descendants of the true Israelites. These are the plagues and the prophecies that went against the children. Does this sound familiar? Whose children were taken and sold from them? Who had a wife and another man lie with her? Who has been the tail and never the head, as prophesied? Who built houses but could not live in them? Who planted vineyards but could not eat or gather them? Who had a yoke of iron put on their necks? Who was sold as bondmen and bondwomen? Who feared for their lives day and night, even until this day? Who went into bondage with ships and sold to their enemies? There is only one group of people who fit these curses because they did not keep the laws of God that he gave them. Who has been scattered, not left on their own, but scattered to every nation? This all sounds like the so-called African American to me, whom God will say, let my people go. The word says he who leads into captivity will go into captivity. The first slave came to America in 1619 to the state of Virginia. How long was that, this second captivity, to last? It is to last 400 years. And in August 2019 will be the 400 years. They will be up. So yes, there is only one group of people who fit these curses, and there were many more that I have not even mentioned. So peace and love. I'm out. So please subscribe.